you're worried about losing your job and you're worried about podcasts taking over and who's the source of news. And we said Donald Trump was Hitler, but half the country disagreed with us and he won. And this is fucking great. And Joe Rogan believes in dragons.
So get this, Joe Rogan, who's easily the most popular podcaster on Spotify, has been embroiled in a whirlwind of controversy for years. He's been called out for spreading misinformation, especially related to COVID, and for bringing on guests who share outlandish views. But here's the thing, you might not know about Rogan, but the man believes in dragons. Yeah, dragons, not some metaphorical or fantasy type thing. No, we're talking about actual real life dragons. I checked it myself. I'm not making this up. The guy who's responsible for some of the biggest podcasting moments in history firmly believes that dragons roam the earth at one point in time.
So apparently Joe Rogan has the most popular podcast on Spotify, and he's repeatedly spread COVID misinformation and invited guests on to do the same.
And from Walter Cronkite, basically to this guy, Joe Rogan, who believes in dragons. I checked it. He believes in dragons? He believes in dragons.
Did you triple force that?
Yes, I did. And he also thinks that dragons, like dinosaur-y type of animals, roamed the earth when people did.
Wild, right? But hold up, before you make up your mind, let's rewind for a second. We're not just talking about some random conspiracy theorist. Joe Rogan is a cultural juggernaut. The same guy who hosts the most listened to podcast in the world. He's made a career of interviewing everyone from UFC fighters to neuroscientists to UFO enthusiasts. But here's the thing, he's always been unapologetically himself. People either love him or hate him. And when it comes to The View, well, let's just say he was a target that no one expected him to hit back at. Picture it, Joe Rogan is just doing his thing, probably sipping some elk meat smoothie or hanging upside down from a kettlebell, when suddenly, out of nowhere, The View starts throwing punches.
That's why people like our show, because they know that we are checked by ABC News.
But we're checked by everybody.
Yeah, I mean, if we're wrong, we have, the legal note here.
Human legal.
I don't know. Hey, this is the most important part. This is right after she was saying, we are run by ABC News. You should trust us, not Joe Rogan, who believes in dragons. So she by saying we should trust them because they're double checked by ABC News, and then making the stupidest statement. Like you didn't listen to what I said.
Yeah.
You didn't listen to what the wildlife biologist, and that's only a part of what he said.
I can't believe
the other
Joy
part of what he
Behar
said
didn't
was
wait.
there was something before that where he was explaining encounters with giant reptiles.
Yeah, that's right. Joy Behar, Whoopi Goldberg, and the gang decided it was time to make him their punching bag. And when I say they went after him, I mean they really went for it. Accusations of misinformation, dangerous rhetoric, you name it. But here's where it gets interesting. Rogan didn't flinch. He didn't respond with anger or a Twitter rant. No, instead, he did something that's going to make their heads spin. He decided to take them to court, a $100 million lawsuit. And trust me, this isn't about hurt feelings. This is about reputation, about business, and about calling out those who think they can sling mud without consequences.
That show has this very specific ideological bubble in which they operate in, and they always bring on a token conservative woman and they yell over her and silence her. And, they did that with Meghan McCain, and they did that with what is that other blonde woman from Survivor? Do you remember her, Jamie? She was always yelling. I mean, it's a bizarre show.
So let's break down The View for a second, shall we? This is a show where the hosts don't hold back. It's a chaotic mess of opinions, jabs, and passive-aggressive commentary. Think of it like a brunch conversation between people who unfortunately think that just because they've read one headline, they now have a PhD in everything. And yes, they always have a token conservative on the show, so they can yell over her and make their own opinions sound like the gospel truth. But when they decided to go after Joe Rogan, they made a huge mistake. They weren't just questioning his opinions. No, they were accusing him of putting people's lives at risk. And folks, when you have millions of people tuning into your podcast, those words can carry some heavy consequences. The thing is, Rogan wasn't even on their show. He wasn't there to defend himself, to stand up for his beliefs. The ladies of The View were just doing what they do best, calling out someone in the public eye and assuming there would be no repercussions.
Did you see Joe Rogan, who believes in dragons, I guess, according to Joy Behar, he changed his X profile. Did you see this?
That. I did see that.
It now just simply says dragon believer. He had talked about dragons on the show. The thing of it is, you take anything out of context and you can make fun of it and mock it. And so, let's do that. It goes without saying, Joe Rogan, how many times more intelligent do you think Joe Rogan is than Joy Behar?
And at first, it seemed harmless. After all, Joe wasn't there, so what's the harm? Well, here's where it backfires. When you go after someone with a $200 million platform, with millions of followers and a reputation that spans years of broadcasting, you better be prepared to back it up. Because here's what happened next. Rogan took them to court, a $100 million defamation lawsuit. The gloves came off and the battle was on. Now let's take a moment to talk about the legal drama. Joe Rogan didn't just fire off a cease and desist letter or make a vague threat. No. His legal team came armed with hard-hitting evidence, receipts, videos, transcripts, everything to prove that The View didn't just air an opinion, they aired a dangerous, reckless accusation with no proof to back it up. And Rogan, he's not one to let that slide. He's not the kind of guy who will let you bash his reputation and get away with it, especially when his career, his brand, and his relationships with companies like Spotify are at stake. Defamation, folks, is serious business. And when you've got millions of listeners, your name means something. It's your brand. And if someone messes with it, they better be ready to face the consequences.
People want us divided, and they aren't just here in this country. They're foreign adversaries who are infiltrating our social media because it is prudent for us to stay that way. So when you see something that really pisses you off, you should triple check that one.
The bad information that's going out there.
Well, in defense, there are some really good news.
It's possible that Donald Trump did roam the earth when dinosaurs were here.
There are some really good news kind of influencer types, and I think it's great that they're getting information about global and current events in front of younger people who maybe don't tune into traditional media. But to Sarah's point, there has to be some fact-checking and actually verification of the things that are shared, because I spend a lot of time on Instagram Reels, and I'm served up things that I get outraged about, and then I realize, oh, that's not even true.
Here's the thing about The View. They've been playing fast and loose with the facts for years, tossing out opinions as if they were certifiable truth, making unsubstantiated claims, and taking jabs at whoever's the target of the week. But now they've crossed a line. They've gone after Joe Rogan, calling him dangerous, reckless, and guilty of spreading misinformation. And let's be clear, when you accuse someone of that, you'd better have the evidence to back it up. Otherwise, you're just throwing around unfounded claims that could come back to bite you. And guess what? That's exactly what happened. Because when you're Joe Rogan and you've got a massive audience, you don't just let it slide when someone tries to take you down with lies. The response from The View after the lawsuit was dropped, well, it wasn't pretty. The hosts, Joy, Whoopi, and the rest, were caught completely off guard. There was no snappy comeback, no witty rebuttal. They were silent. You could almost hear the collective gulp as they realized they might have just stepped into something far bigger than they anticipated. Legal reps from ABC, who, remember, owns The View, were scrambling, trying to figure out just how bad this could get. A legal statement was issued, of course, something along the lines of, "We're reviewing our options." Translation, "Oh crap, we messed up." But here's the thing about Joe Rogan. He's no stranger to controversy. He's dealt with attacks before. But this one's different. This time, he's not just going to roll over and let people smear his name. This time, he's got the power, the platform, and the legal team to back him up. The lawsuit isn't just about getting his name cleared, it's about sending a message. It's about saying, you can't just toss around accusations like this without facing the music. Because the truth is, the stakes are high. The View doesn't just throw out opinions, they've got the kind of influence that can shape public perception. And when they make baseless claims, it's not just an off-the-cuff remark, it's a potential career killer. Let's wrap this up by diving into the real issue here, the increasingly blurry and often dangerous line between free speech and reckless speech in today's digital age. See, we live in a world where the power of communication has shifted. Traditional boundaries of authority and credibility have eroded, and now nearly everyone with a platform, whether it's a podcast, a YouTube channel, or a Twitter account, has a microphone that can reach millions of ears. The landscape of information has become democratized, but with that power comes an enormous responsibility. People now have the power to influence others on a massive scale. Social media influencers, podcasters, TV personalities, they all have the potential to shape public opinion, sometimes with just a few words. And the scariest part, some of them don't even need to be particularly well informed to get their voices amplified. That's the age we live in, when a show like The View broadcasts a claim about someone without verifying it, without properly checking the facts, and without offering a disclaimer that this is just an opinion. It's more than just casual conversation. It's potentially dangerous. We're talking about a media empire where millions of viewers tune in daily to hear their hosts opine on everything from politics to social issues. And when they throw out accusations like Joe Rogan is endangering humanity or spreading misinformation, that's not a casual comment anymore. That's a serious claim, one that can harm not only Joe Rogan's career, but also the public's perception of him. Now, what Joe Rogan is doing with this lawsuit is setting an important precedent. He's showing that just because you're on a popular show with a huge following, it doesn't mean you get a free pass to smear someone's name. He's taking action, not just for himself, but for everyone in the public eye, especially in this age where the line between opinion and fact is often so blurred that it's hard to tell one from the other. In doing so, he's essentially challenging a bigger issue, the way mainstream media, especially daytime TV, handles its responsibility to the public. Shows like The View are supposed to offer insight, maybe a little entertainment, and yes, sometimes even some humor. But they're not supposed to be the moral police, throwing around unfounded accusations that could ruin a person's career. What Rogan's lawsuit boils down to is this: if you're going to say something about someone that could seriously harm their reputation, you'd better have the facts to back it up. This case is bigger than just a lawsuit. It's about setting the standard for how public figures should be treated in the media. It's about making sure that when you say something, especially when you've got millions of people listening, you take responsibility for those words. Because if we allow this kind of unchecked, uninformed commentary to continue, we risk eroding the very foundation of what makes free speech valuable in the first place. Free speech isn't just about saying whatever you want. It's about being responsible with the words you put out into the world. And the more we forget that, the more we risk creating a world where everything and everyone can be destroyed by a careless comment or a baseless accusation. So let's take a step back and ask ourselves, what's the real cost of misinformation? And who's responsible when a mistake, or worse, an intentional lie, is spread to the masses? It's not just about Joe Rogan versus The View. It's about a much larger conversation that needs to happen. One about media accountability, the power of the platform, and the real-world effects of what gets said in front of millions of people. This is just the beginning of a much larger conversation that could ultimately shape the future of media and how we consume information in the age of digital influence. And in the end, that's the ultimate lesson here. Words have consequences, and they always will.